One, two, three. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Cruisin the Planet. You'll notice that this episode has a bit of a episode 9 opener. For anyone who watched the video on that, if you heard the audio, it just is going to be me this week because everyone's getting ready for finals. The reason that I'm actually able to put on this episode and such is because I am still allowed to work up at the station. And because we've been doing these one-on-one episodes recently about interviewing what have you been doing for work, what have you been doing at home for fun, things like that, just catching up on everybody and checking in on those who aren't at the station and are having to work from home like many of us, or many of y'all. I'm not super in tune with the whole thing, because normal just doesn't exist right now for us. I figured that I would do my episode this week because finals are happening and such, and I'm not super worried about my classes right now due to the switch over from majors. I have a little bit of a reprieve, which is interesting. I'm also already at work, which means that I need to do this anyways. So, the way that work has been going for me specifically has already been different. I think if longtime listeners will know that I control the podcast output, like managing all of those shows, along with the Twitter account and our like a general social media concept and our YouTube account. Those are the things that I manage. The instant that the spring break started, y'all would have noticed that we did not produce a YouTube video, and then we continue to not produce YouTube videos moving forward, and that's simply just because there's only 2 people at the station. One of them has a camera, yourself here. The other one does not. We are also not allowed to work at the same time. Some of the precautions and procedures put into place set it such that only we have Lance, who y'all have seen on our manager, y'all have seen on the show before. He's allowed to come in and be here full time because he's a genuine employee. We're all genuine employees, but we're student workers. He is a station manager as his position. And so with that, he's here almost every day, unless he has to go do. He's here every day, actually. That's true. But student workers we're only allowed 1 student worker per staff member at a time. Because the station's so small, it would be dangerous because I don't know if y'all have seen on certain episodes how close the desks are, especially where Cole and I would sit. I believe you can look at the first and second YouTube shorts. You can see that we are quite literally sit directly next to each other, and that's for work, like convenience and workplace stuff that we are allowed to do. But that doesn't happen anymore, so it's 1 student worker and 1 staff person in the station to operate everything. And because we host 2 news shows, one in the morning and one in the evening, those student workers are now hosting those shows. As such, I've been doing a lot more news hosting, which is very different. There are scripts. I can show y'all some of these. Some never before seen things. We have break schedules and such, things that are timed. I would like to show you this, but it'd be very difficult to finagle the camera over to all the buttons that we are allowed to play and hotkeys. We have to watch clocks. It's a completely different workflow from being a podcast where the idea is to fill time until about an hour and then just move on from there. So work has gotten very different. Our entire schedules have all changed, obviously. And we don't see other people at the station, where before we had 4 other people at any given time we could call on for help and advice or to help with their projects and stuff. So everything project-based has just moved entirely to online, which causes a lot of just communication and meetings now, where previously there was simply a spin your chair and talk to the person. And so work has gotten very formal, and it's just different. It's not good or bad, just different. For me, obviously, I'm doing a lot more hosting. I do have a few good announcements, however. We are working on getting an encoder set up for streaming our other station for everyone who listens on in campus, you obviously know about KXTR 100.7, the rock and hip hop channel. We host a secondary channel that actually reaches much farther out of this building, which is 90.5 KTRL. That's the one who does the news shows. That hasn't been streamed online like KXDR has the ability to, simply due to projects getting put in, more important projects being put in front of it. And we're finally getting around to that. Just yesterday, we got our tests up, and they were working very well. There have been a few flaws, but there's only so many people to work on them, and we have just multiple things going on right now. So that is something that's coming soon, is a link to where you can listen to our news shows universally whenever they come on. Actually, they're not pre-recorded, so you'd have to listen to them because it's a live stream. You know how that works. You're watching these. Second thing, I have been working on producing this episode and such, but also when I'm not producing, editing, or hosting something, I have been working on a very special place on the internet called a website. You know what a website is. That's disingenuous to the audience here. What I've been doing is making us a kxtr.com official. It's a Squarespace site, so it's nothing super fancy because it's mostly been me. Cole has come and helped on like specific decisions or adding in a lot of verbiage, but the hardwiring and stuff has been just a lot of what I'm doing outside of this, along with keeping the station sanitized, clean, and organized. Those have been the projects, my projects, is recently the encoding and our website, which the date seems to be shifting around a bit, so we're just going to start throwing a lot of stuff out on social media. You can follow us at KXDR 100.7 The Planet, where we do, I think that's right. No, on Instagram it's 100.7. On Twitter it's 107, like 1007, 1007. KXDR 1007, with or without the dot, depending on format. That's where we'll be posting our updates, and then eventually we'll probably do some sort of YouTube video that shows all the different features we have. You'll be able to find all of our podcasts there. If you don't know, this show is part of a network that is on the Tarleton Radio Network, and if you look up this show specifically, Cruisin the Planet, on wherever you can get podcasts, you'll have the ability to find just this show. But if you look up... If you look up Cruisin the Planet, you'll find Cruisin the Planet. If you look up Tarleton Radio Network, you will find a feed that is every single show that we host. It's a sort of conglomerate feed that catches all things, including at large-scale announcements happening in and around campus. That's my pitch section. Moving in through my notes. Outside of doing a lot of hosting, you would think, with everything going on, what is there to host and talk about? Because originally we'd just talk about sort of fun pieces or certain events going on around town. Recently, we have been working a large document. This is something that everyone's been working on. I'll show y'all here. It is a full-on Texas, Tarleton, Stephenville, and then all of our lower-level areas. Information on where you can and cannot go based on what places are open. Like food. If you'll notice on our Twitter recently, we've been using the hashtag DineOutStephenville to tell people what has carry-on or dine-out options or is offering delivery through DoorDash and whatnot in Stephenville, because people need to know where restaurants are at. And there's a lot of service industry in Stephenville that, quite frankly, is going very, very, very underfunded. I myself work at a restaurant as my secondary job outside of this to cover the cost of college, and it's... the scheduling has gotten very difficult. We have a lot of adjusted schedules recently. And so I know for a fact that a lot of other places are having a lot of trouble in and around town. In all places, quite honestly, around Texas. So we're trying to inform the public of where you can go. I understand that going out isn't the safest thing right now, but also there's just sort of a lot of anxiety going on right now for everybody. But if we can inform the people about a currently safe place to go, then that's sort of the job of a radio station in the news. Sorry to get poetic all of a sudden, or get too deep. So we'll move on to the fun stuff. What have I been doing for fun? Personally, I enjoy video games and reading stories, specifically stories. That's actually the reason I play video games. However, reading a lot of stories can be very complex and complicated. Recently, for my birthday present, from an advanced birthday present from my mother, most gracious woman, she got me a book, the one of the original printings of the Brothers Grimm publications back from I want to say 1985. It wasn't a translation copy. It was just whenever they did a special printing that had a very flavorful annotations and stuff of that nature. A leather-bound book about yay big, about that thick. It's 100 of their tales, translated from German. The Brothers Grimm were originally German brothers, I believe Johann and Johann's brother. I enjoy those. Fairy tales are fun, especially now. The whole idea, I believe one translation for fairy tales is legitimately is fun-filled adventures. I can be completely wrong on that. Please don't quote me or cite any of this as a source. I just enjoy reading enjoyable tales that are magical, whimsy, and full of fun. None of the dark Lovecraftian horrors that I've been used to. As y'all know, I enjoy a lot of horror movies and stuff. They're cathartic, but right now it's a little too much to be watching something like a zombie infestation or like a Resident Evil. It's just there's no enjoyment in it because of the current pretext of the world, the current situation. So, we've been finding, I say we because I'm about to get into a cool recommendation. I've recently been playing a lot of games where you're the hero, the antagonist, not the protagonist. Oh, jeez, I'm all backwards now. Where you're the protagonist who has the ability to save the world, and that is definitely much more enjoyable than reading some sort of horror where you are doomed from the beginning. It's a lot nicer to think about, especially in my fun time on my schedule in between final studies. The whole point is I've been playing a recent online multiplayer game called Remnant. It only exists on the PC for now, I believe. It's called specifically called Remnant from the Ashes. Basically, it's a third-person shooter, kind of like a mix between The Division and Dark Souls. I know that I've recommended a Dark Souls game on this before, and it's not a Dark Souls in the sense of it has hack and slash mechanics where you have knights or you have magic. It's more along those lines of you have abilities but similar to The Division, but your health system and the way that you take damage and the way that the terrain is created is a lot like Dark Souls. So if you have played a Dark Souls game and ever wanted to shoot a gun in that world, then this is a pretty close second. It's post-apocalyptic, we say looter shooter, or at least we've been trying to figure out how to describe the game. It's very original, quite honestly. You can definitely see the frameworks that the game was designed from, but it has a ton of dungeons. It is up to 3-player multiplayer, and it's on sale right now for PC, which means it's super good for a bunch of college students who have very little money as is. It's really fun. It's got a lot of advancement. It has a lot of great lore. We actually just found out there was a whole hidden entrance in the home base that is just full of history within that world that you can go into, and so it's a very good escapist fantasy. It's a post-apocalyptic, which is something that's perhaps not. I don't know how to be politically correct about that whole thing, quite honestly. But there's like a level of we are in a bad situation, and then the protagonist shows up and they can fix it, and that's the enjoyable part of this game. It's got a lot of very fun mechanics. It's got a lot of replayability. Quite actually, I believe that the devs said that you're supposed to play through the game at least 3 times to sort of find everything, because there's an aspect of randomness to the entire world. You'll still have certain key things that do need to happen and will happen throughout the game. However, there is always a chance of you just getting something totally random that you'd never seen before by playing through. We were testing out that randomness mechanic, and so we each created 3 different characters in 3 different worlds, and then we were playing through my friend Andrew's world for a while, and we got up to a certain level, and then we quit out, came over to my buddy Trevor's world. These are friends from back in high school. We were playing online, and then playing through his world, the entire map was completely different. All of the dungeons were entirely changed, and however, certain story beats and key items were still the same, which is how we kind of figured out there's a ton of procedural generation. But not only were the dungeons changed and modified, the overworld was changed and modified, so we get completely different gameplay experiences. And we're assuming that once we've only made it, I think, a tenth of the way through the game, and we've been playing for like 5 hours, so it's got, possibly 2-3 days worth of gameplay with your friends, and then you can just switch through and play through another person's world, or reset your world and play through it again, and it's completely different. So it definitely seems like what Destiny was trying to do whenever it first came out, that sort of looter shooter grind thing, but this game doesn't feel like a grind whatsoever. It's satisfying, and that's something that I think is, at least I have been craving, is something satisfying to do. As y'all know, we don't do those YouTube shorts for now until everything sort of comes back into normal. I might be able to find some time to film something, especially once finals are over, and I can coordinate a few ideas with other people in some meetings, but I've lost a bit of an artistic outlet, and have quite honestly been searching for that. I've been doing a lot more writing at home for funny little ideas or jokes of things. I've been working on personal projects, and that's sort of everything that I've been doing at home, is playing a rad new shooter game online with my buddies, and work has been changed completely over to a very skeletonized crew. But at no point have I felt like I'm just stuck in something or wasting away. I feel like everything so far that I've been working on has been benefiting somebody, even if it's myself. I have, however, not been sleeping very well. Just remember that part. I think that's just because my schedule at my other job at the restaurant has been pushed to completely different hours, and they're not conflicting, but they're running really close to those early morning news shows, which causes a little bit of anxiety of I have to get closed at work, I have to get home right now, and I have to sleep now, and then I have to wake up early. But this too shall pass. I'm not actually complaining. It's just another thing of no, sleep schedules are messed up. Everything's new. Everything's completely different. Things are still kind of changing around here. Every once in a while we'll get a new update this way or that way. But for the most part, this has been a very short episode because, as you might have realized, the show is designed to have guests. But if that's not able to happen, then I am to be the filler. And so I hope that this has been an interesting look into what one little crazy lad's situation is during all of this, being a host and such. If anyone has any sort of questions or concerns about what we do at the station, you can always reach out to us on our social media links. Those are in the description of not only this video, but also of our podcast. If you're listening on audio, it'll be in the description of your episode. You can find our shows anywhere you look up either Tarleton Radio Network, Tarleton Radio Podcasts, Cruisin the Planet, and a couple of our other shows that we've been working on recently have been a show name change for our political show. We recently had a staff person move out of the state. They've made an advancement in their career, and that's awesome for them. However, we did have to rebrand everything, which was fine. We got it done in a day, which is good. And that show is now called On Politics with Dr. Morrow. He's finding guests and talking a very centrist attempt at conversing about current politics, which might be very enlightening to listen to all of their old stuff along with their new stuff. They're very weekly. I believe episodes come out on Saturdays now, or have been coming out on Saturdays. And if not, then they'll be out the Monday or Tuesday. You can also, now that stream is being put up, the monitors over here, now that the stream is being put up, you'll have the ability to listen to the shows live whenever that's going on. And we can give links and such on our social medias again at KXTR The Planet 1007 on Twitter and KXTR The Planet 100.7 on Instagram. We also have Facebook, if that suits you. I just don't know. I have no idea about this audience. I've realized that there's about 14 total people who download our show. Could be 12, because I don't know if I download my own show. I just kind of listen to all of our other things due to managing them. And so please let me know what have y'all been doing during quarantine. I'm genuinely curious as to what everyone's doing in their free time. That's sort of why I've started interviewing individuals. I want to see some interconnectivity. I want to start talking and continue talking to anyone and everyone who's been up to something. If you made anything new that's cool and artsy, 100%, I want to see that or hear about it. If you made music, maybe you could, come on in this show. I do have some other guests coming on next week. I know for certain we're gonna have Jake, which will be nice. We can finally have a return of the crazy old boy. I'll be interviewing him, and then later on, I think I'll be interviewing Taylor, Brian, and then we'll be moving on to possibly DJs. But that's sort of the schedule so far. If anything changes, well, you'll see it on either on our socials, or it'll be a whole new intro in the beginning of the next week's episode. Looking at my list, that's everything that I have scripted to talk about, and if I just start rambling, I don't think I could really fill time for another 40 minutes. So, apologies if this is a rather short episode. It is only one little lad here to talk. I don't have very much to say because, quite honestly, I need to get busy and get back to work. I've technically snuck off into the studio to record this while everyone else is out doing something. Well, I say everyone else. Lance is off doing something more important. So I will hit this button here, raise this slider, and I will see everybody next week. I hope that you have had found something relaxing to do during all of this. I've found mine for now, and if that changes, I'll be talking about it here. And if you've found something fun or interesting to do in and around Stephenville or wherever you stay, let us know on our social medias. This has been a nice episode. I'll see everybody next week. Y'all stay in there.